Thank you for coming. I'm Lewis Clark, President of the Government Accountability Project, and I would like to, first of all, acknowledge and thank the Washington College of Law of American University for co-sponsoring today's event, both in terms of this this 1-hour presentation of our Whistleblower Tour, and also for the continuing legal education portion of today's program, which will happen in about 1 hour. And so thanks to the Washington College of Law. We've had a great relationship with the Washington College of Law over the years, in small part because I'm an alumni of this school, but I think a much larger part is because Professor Robert Vaughn is a professor here, and he is the nation's leading academic scholar on the issue of whistleblower protection, having written numerous law review articles and also provided the teaching experience of the whistleblower law within the faculty or within the academic program here at the school. And so it's great to have this relationship to the Washington College of Law. First of all, I'd like to talk just very briefly about what the Government Accountability Project does, who we are. First of all, we are a law firm for whistleblowers, and we do what other law firms do. We represent clients, and our clients happen to be, for the most part, whistleblowers. Secondly, what we do is we investigate what they have to say. And we've learned over the years that if you actually investigate what people have to say, more and more people will come to you if you're successful, I should say, in revealing or exposing the problems that the whistleblowers present to you. More and more people will come to you to present issues and concerns. In the food safety area alone, we've been involved since 1980, which is 35 years ago. And some of our cases have included whistleblowing on the poultry industry, which ended up with a blockbuster piece on 60 Minutes back in 1987, which is considered a classic 60-minute program. And after it aired, it had so much impact that the price of poultry actually went down $1 a pound for the whole next year, largely because of the attention to poultry contamination that the program discussed and presented. Secondly, another sort of like 10 years later, we took 19 whistleblowers to the national media. In this case, it was ABC, Primetime Live, and that was the Food Lion scandal. And that involved the practices at the Food Lion company, which had, at that time, 1,000 stores, I believe. They were about to open 80 stores. As a result of the revelations, they ended up closing 80 stores, and the stock dropped in price by over a half. And apparently, it's never regained it has never gained back the losses. So that scandal actually follows Food Lion to this day. Then another 10 years later, we were responsible for helping the whistleblower on the peanut contamination involving one of the largest food recalls in the history of the country. And so those are just 3 of the cases. As a result of our program, we've ended up developing a number of programs within the Government Accountability Project. And that's because we've had so many whistleblowers in particular areas that we've actually created programs around the whistleblowers. And of course, today we're talking in terms of the Food Integrity Campaign, one of our programs. We also have a bank and finance integrity campaign. We have an international program. We have an environmental program and a national security program. A third thing that we do is we work on legislation. GAP has been responsible for, or at least involved in most of the major pieces of federal legislation in the area of whistleblowing. And just in the last 6 years alone, these various laws are now impacting over 100 million people in the private sector. And in the continuing legal education course that will be following this presentation, you'll be talking about one of those, which is the Food Safety Modernization Act. And also of note, and recently, GAP has ended a 13-year campaign to bring whistleblower protections to federal employees with the success of the Whistleblower Protection Enhancement Act, which then was followed a month later, and that was last November, and then a month later it was followed by the including all government contractors in the legislation as well. So now defense contractors and other contractors to the federal government, all areas except national security, and those people are still essentially have no whistleblower protections whatsoever. We're working on it. A fourth thing that we do at the Government Accountability Project is this whistleblower protection, this whistleblower tour, which is American Whistleblower Tour, where we bring whistleblowers to college campuses across the country, and so that the next generation of our citizens will be exposed to the issues of whistleblowing, both in terms of the tours that we do and actually introducing whistleblowers to the campuses, but as well, we are working on the curricula of various of the disciplines on the college campuses, in particular law and journalism and business administration. So with that, I would like to point out, I guess, a couple things. One is that there's a survey about today that you have in your materials about today's presentation. Please fill it out. That's very helpful to us to design additional programs in the future. We definitely study all the evaluations that we receive. And it's important for us as well in terms of funding to let our funders know how well it's going in terms of our programs that we're presenting. And so that would be helpful. Also, I'd like to point out that today's event is being covered, I guess, on Twitter. And so if you would like to ask questions and want those questions to come to us through the Twitter process, then our hashtag is WBTour. And when we get to the question and answer period today, if there are any questions that are asked through the Twitter process, then I'll be asking those questions as well. And so with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Phyllis McKelvey. Phyllis worked in the poultry industry for 44 years, both in terms of the federal government, working for the federal government, as well as working for private industry. So we'll be probing that experience today. So 44 years. She retired in the year 2010, and then something happened, which is that all of a sudden the Department of Agriculture last year decided to make a program national, and this is the HIMP program, which we'll be delving in some detail. HIMP is an inspection system whereby the line speeds of poultry plants are increased substantially, so that one bird will be going down the line every third of a second, and there'll be one inspector, maybe two at most, but one or two inspectors that will now be looking at these birds at this tremendous rate of speed. A second thing that's happening with the HIMP program is the number of inspectors are decreased substantially. So there are fewer inspectors looking at birds that are flying by at an incredible rate of speed. In addition to that, much of the quality assurance process is actually turned over to the companies themselves. So those are three aspects of the program which I believe Phyllis will be talking about, about her problem with. And so she decided to come out of retirement and be the face of resistance to this new program. And so she worked with the .org, what is it here? Change.org, sorry. She was working with Change.org. She put together a program to reach out to the American public, and 185,000 people so far, and I think the number is growing, have signed her petition, and she's presented that to the Department of Agriculture. So we'll be talking about what that process has been like. So with that, I'll sit down over there and be asking my questions. And as well, remember, as well, we'll have questions from the audience, so please hold those as we go. So you worked at the poultry industry. Could you describe the kind of jobs that you had?
Okay, I went to work as, I guess you'd say, a child. I was barely 18 years old the first time I worked in a poultry plant. Everything back then was done virtually by hand. We had very few pieces of equipment in these plants. And you were taught sanitation. Back then, people were very, good old Southern cooks are very clean cooks, and we were trained and did our job as if we were cooking it or cutting it up to go to our children that day. You could eat off the floors. They were that clean. As years have gone by, bird speed back then was only 44 birds a minute going down the line, with 3 federal inspectors on that line. The federal inspector at that time looked at every bird, palletized the visceral, checked for liver and spleen tumors, a number of diseases you detect by looking at that visceral in the bird, okay? And looking down inside the bird, turning the bird completely around, looking for all bruises, feathers, anything that needed to be removed from that carcass. Okay, then time went on, they got more automation. They went up to 66 birds a minute. Still had the 3 inspectors online, but you had house inspectors in case something was missed by the, in which I did that job for a long time. I was an inspector's helper also at one time. And then I progressed to the house inspector because you look for everything that this equipment left behind. The lungs, the kidney, whatever needed to be done to the chicken before it goes into the chiller. Then through the years, I progressed into quality assurance and did a lot of tests, backed up USDA with their test if they failed when we went to 91 birds a minute. At 91 birds a minute, you have 3 inspectors on the line getting approximately 30 1/3 birds per minute to look at. Okay, there's a program called CIS that is 71 birds a minute, and those inspectors get right at 35 birds per minute, okay? So we're talking how many birds a federal inspector can look at per minute. No more than 35 birds per minute is presented to a federal inspector, okay? Then as automation came along, some plants are running what they call a Mine Maestro, which runs up to 105 to 140 birds a minute depending upon their equipment. And they have like 4 inspectors because, like I said, nobody can look at no more than 35 birds a minute, and their chicken is tilted where they can see inside of it, see the whole chicken. The visceral comes along with the chicken in a cup. They look at the visceral, and the bird goes on down the line. Okay. Then the government, USDA, which was my employer, came up with this HIMP program. Let's take all the federal inspectors off the line and put them on the floor at that time. And I was one of the first. There was a team of 4 GS8s and a GS9 with a veterinarian on each shift. And I was one of the team on the second shift. which is now Pilgrim's Pride in Gunnersville, Alabama. It was Gold Kissed at the time. The officials from the plant went to Canada to look at their situation, to see how to position their people. They also, USDA allowed their, what they call food safety supervisors, to go out to Texas and go to the same poultry school that the inspectors went to see how to inspect in poultry. Then they, normally most of the ones that started out was inspectors helpers, got the, what they call sorters jobs. They turned all the inspection, hands-on inspection, over to the company. And through time, very short time, these girls said, oh, how did y'all do that all these years? This is too hard. I'm bidding off of this. I want to bet a different job. Even though it pays more, I want off of this. Okay. So they just get anybody, put them up on the line. Sometimes they'll touch the bird. Sometimes it just goes by because they're talking, they're busy. But during this time, though, they decided, well, you're against the law. The law was written carcass by carcass inspection in 1907, I believe it was. Congress passed the law.
And that's still the law?
Still the law today. Carcass by carcass inspection. So they come up with this grand little ideal. We'll put the inspectors, one per line, at the end of the line, so that they can oversee each carcass before it goes into the children. We'll call that carcass inspection. No hands-on. At one point, we were allowed to look down in the birds. We'd raise our stands so we could look down in the bird as it flew by us. You'd see a lot of fecal material in that bird, a lot of IP, which is where a sore's got all crusted and yucky inside the skin, pulse running out of it, all of that mist, you know, just gross stuff.
Anyone eating right now?
Just gross. And they call this minor things, you know. USDA says, oh, that's just little minor blemishes. No, it's not. It's disease, okay? So then they decided we were writing because we were behind their zero tolerance rinse cabinet. We were between it and the chiller. So they decided that we were writing too many non-compliance reports. And this is how USDA gets their wonderful little information through the computer of their non-compliance reports, okay? So we were writing too many. So they sent circuit supervisors out to make sure that we knew never to raise that stand again to look down in that bird. We were only allowed, and still today, only allowed to look straight ahead of you, looking between the two legs of a bird, which down in here is the kill, the breast kill. You are not supposed to look below that breast kill down into the cavity. You only see this bird coming to you, the two legs hanging like this, flying at 175 or above. Some people are running 180. You're seeing the side here that's coming to you with a wing. You might catch this side going out. A lot of times you catch a lot of fecal on the wings where the water's bloated into the little place of the wing there, on the tips of the wings, on the legs up where the visceral is got on the legs. You find a lot of feces. Okay, so we were writing in non-compliance reports on all this fecal material. Okay, brilliant idea USDA came up with. We will put the final zero tolerance test behind the federal inspectors. Then they cannot write us a non-compliance report because it's before the final zero tolerance testing area and cabinet. So then we were only allowed to stop the line when we saw fecal or food safety, which is a sip-top bird, or any bird that we would throw away if we were up doing hands-on inspection. If we found those issues, we had to stop the line, notify the company, they would take measures, slow down the line, what have you. If we did find a food safety issue, such as sip-top bird or leucosis bird, we would have to write a non-compliance report on that, of course, but not the fecal. So,
Can I ask one question here? Is this the HIMP program?
this is the HIMP.
And is this a pilot program? Okay.
This is a pilot program in 20 plants across the
Okay.
United States, mostly in the southeast,
Okay.
because we have so much poultry down there. And this plant, hemp program, is in a pilot stage, and this pilot stage has been going on for over 10 years. That should tell everyone that if it's taken 10 years to run a pilot program to go nationwide with, it's not working. Right? Another point of view I want to bring out right now. If I'm going to give you 8 hours a day free labor, and you own a company, and I'm giving you all these people 8 hours a day free labor to watch after my product, so that it goes out the door, and I'm not responsible, they're going to be responsible if this disease gets out. Why would you want to give up all that free labor, take on all those responsibilities? Common sense tells you they want to put everything on that market, everything on that market if they can get out that back door. We call the front doors where the birds come in to be killed, the back doors going out shipping.
Who are the people that they put in your experience, in the quality assurance position?
In the sorter positions on the hemp line?
Yes.
In the sorter positions, they put these jobs up. It pays a couple of dollars more an hour than other jobs. Okay, they'll put them on their board for bids. And anyone that bids on them that they can halfway read or teach the diseases, what to look for, they slap them on the line.
So they don't have any
They don't have any
training.
really formal training. The plant that I came out of does have a written program that they have to pass a little test on. But the other plants that I know of and associated with, they don't have this program. That is whoever they can get to take those jobs, because it is a very hard job, because you're grabbing a bird like this. I mean, every second you've got a bird in your hand. It's impossible to see inside that bird and that bird as it's flying by at a third of a second or less. Now, we're figuring that third of a second at 175. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these plants are running above 175. Now, USDA has proposed this final rule at being top speed 175.
So when they announced the federal program, what did you decide to do?
I decided to come out of retirement and speak up. I do a little treasury job that I've been trying to get the members to take. I was elected into that before I retired, and we've had everybody says, "Oh, you're doing such a good job. We don't want you out of it." So I'm having a hard time getting out of this job. So I was asked by our local to come to a march last April, and I said, "Most certainly." And I get up here, and they give me a list of the plants that's going to go with hemp immediately, as soon as they can push it through. I used to work for USDA AEMS, which is over grading. Before I went into inspection, I was in that. And I traveled all over Alabama and Tennessee. And I can tell you, there's nightmares out there. And to put a program like this in, it's just gonna make people sick.
So, what are other inspectors that are now on that job? Are they talking to you?
Oh, yes. I was really a little bit afraid of speaking out and then contacting my friends. I am speaking out because I'm a grandmother of 8. I have grandchildren, and hopefully, I have one little great-grandson, my daughter's stepdaughter's child. I'd hate to see that child get E. coli, or any child get E. coli, because you're possessed then with possible kidney failure, heart failure, early onset Alzheimer's, so many things from E. coli and salmonella that's left in your body. If you don't die from it immediately, so much left in your body. So that, to me, It's why I'm fighting. I don't want any older person that's in a nursing home fed something that's going to make them worse or die. And I don't want them fed, my babies, grandbabies, any baby in this country, fed something that's going to make it sick. And we, the American people, the taxpayers, should be allowed for this country to have nothing but safe food and safe drugs.
Now, what are the, is this sort of unanimous in terms of your inspection friends that are describing what's still, what's going on?
Yes, as I stated, I was a little reluctant to contact some. Well, I got a phone call. When I got back from Washington, our local paper had ran a big article on myself, gave where I lived and everything in the article, and I got a phone call from the company. And they said, "Hey, Phil, we saw your article. We all read it. We passed the paper out. We took it to USDA, and they're all so proud of you for speaking up." I have circuit supervisors patting me on the back, said, "Go, Phil. We can't speak out, but you can. We can't stop this, but you can." And veterinary supervisors speaking out to me. They tell me all the changes. I get to go in plants with different changes because there's representation, and so that's good. Especially since I'm speaking out, it keeps me abreast of everything that's coming out, changes made. And
the ones that are saying that you can speak out, but they can't, I mean, what are they saying about that?
well, the Department of Agriculture has this wonderful little thing, and they got an email a week before last. Because the news media has really gotten tough with there and home in Alabama with safety issues. My daughter herself has had carpal tunnel surgery on both hands. She used to work in a poultry plant. Okay? They have really hit them hard with, in the law office there in Alabama that's over this is really hitting them hard with safety issues and these fast line speeds and not taking care of people. So the USDA in the district, which Alabama is under the district of Jackson, Mississippi, the head officer down there, he sent out an email. Do not speak out to the media. Refer them to, and give a list of names that were allowed to speak out.
So, and that's their, internal public affairs officers? Mm-hmm. So they're being gagged?
They're being told, do not speak out. Because you're an inspector, and reporter's going to say that you're an inspector, so the general public's going to get the view of what you say.
Right.
So they
don't have a problem with the First Amendment.
They have, this one was negotiated. The only way an inspector can speak out is as a private citizen.
Right. So could you not solve that by essentially when they speak out, they just say, well, I'm speaking out as a private citizen, and then they can say something? Is the Department of Agriculture telling people that?
Yeah.
Or are they just telling
well,
them?
the union has told the members that
okay.
You can't,
the
department says you can't do this, but you can speak out as a private citizen. Okay, everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
You're not going to speak out because if you ever want a promotion, you're not going to ever get a promotion.
Right, so people are intimidated.
Very intimidating, very intimidating.
But you've had a positive experience. So unlike many whistleblowers, it sounds like because you have this freedom, it sounds like people are appreciating you, and they're not retaliating. Is that
No
right?
retaliation. Everybody that I have come in contact with, keep up the good work. You're fighting for us, people in our community, our church, my husband's coworkers. Just everywhere I go. I was at a funeral home last week. A friend of ours had passed, and several came up to me. I hear you going back to Washington. Keep up the good work. We're praying for your fight. You know, we do need safe food in this country. So I have gotten positives. Because I'm doing what other people want to do, but they're afraid of their job, and they can't do. So if we can say, and it's just like in those poultry plants, they slap your hands, and you're a federal inspector, and you're trained to do your job. And then they come out with these programs, and they give more and more to the companies. And then when you do your job and write a non-compliance report on it, and they'll come in and say, you've got to close that. You've got too much information. You know? So Washington only gets pretty. They don't know actually what's happening in these plants. And they're wanting to make rules that affect the food that goes into our children by pretty reports.
So do you know what's happening with him now? I mean, what's the process? They put it out there for rulemaking. People have commented. But what?
As of right now, as far as I know, unless it's changed within the last day, it's still on hold. And Mr. Balasic said that during the sequester...
The Secretary?
Yeah, Secretary of Agriculture said that during the sequester and during this budget cut, that one thing that's being cut is training. All right, to go nationwide with this, you would have to have training for your inspection teams.
Do you think they're using that as an excuse because they're now embarrassed, or?
I don't know how it's going to play out. I know that we, the American people, please get on change.org and continue signing this, because they are looking at it now that we've turned it over. I do know that they do look at what's gone into them. I've got a letter back with responses from them that they were looking into our comments and our
Were there
petition.
other inspectors who added comments as well?
I'm positive there are comments from a lot of inspectors. I've not read every comment. There's so many. We turned over in November 1,300 of the best comments that we saw. A lot of lawyers, doctors, different, throughout walks of life had some wonderful comments of food safety issues in this country and how they were supporting us to try to fight these.
Now, did you, in this whole process, did you ever consider not doing it? I mean, not stepping forward and...
No, I felt it was my duty. It is my duty as an American citizen and as a mother and a grandmother and taxpayer to make sure that we have safe food in this country.
And so, obviously, you would do it again.
Oh, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Yes.
In a heartbeat.
And what do you have to say to perhaps students who are about to go into careers about about what they should be thinking about, or what you think they should think about before going into the workplace?
I think they should, if they find wrongdoing in their workplace, let someone know. Talk with their supervision. If that doesn't stop the wrongdoing, go out with it. Get it stopped. Because we, the people, have got to see that this country is ran correctly. And evidently, we have voted in a lot of people that thinks once they're voted in, that's the end of their job. And to be a whistleblower has been a pleasant experience for me, because it's got out to the public what needs to be spoken. And there's laws to, now that I've been in it and know about so much about it, don't worry about your job. There's laws to protect you. If they fire you, you'll still get paid, because you can sue them. Because it's your right to speak
With that,
out.
at a law school, let's see if we have some questions here. Yes.
Hi, Phyllis.
Hi.
Sheldon, I'm with National Consumer Suite. I've actually worked a lot with different groups, especially about food safety issues, and I work the background. Could you tell me some of the responses you had when you went to meet with the bill last spring, and just tell us what responses you had from different senators and congressmen?
Well, I got positive attitudes from the congressmen and senators, people. I think it was very positive because I told them about, let me tell you about something I told them. I don't want to make you sick. I know you're having breakfast this morning, but you're not eating chips. Okay. Okay. As I was telling you, we were positioned behind the, before the final rinse cabinet because they didn't want all these NRs written, non-compliance reports. So you know fecal is going in that chiller. You know it's going in there. And they've come up with these wonderful antimicrobial rinses that they shoot in the chiller with the chlorine water. And your chicken is just rolling around in there. It depends upon what the timing is on their chiller, from an hour and a half to 2 hours to come out at 40 degrees at the other end. Okay? They've been rolling in these chemicals and this poop solution all this time. Okay.
Otherwise known as fecal soup, I think.
Yes. And we have a district supervisor who says, oh, feces is not going to hurt you to eat it. It's been through the antimicrobial wash. You want a plate full? I don't. Okay. Okay. So anyway, I was telling them about how they roll around. And I had one in our congressman's office. He almost changed colors on me. He just didn't like that at all. He said, oh, my. I said, yes, because let me tell you, these young housewives have never been taught to cook. Their mothers may not have been taught to cook properly, the fast age of today. But you read your package. Your package says, ready to cook. You take this product out of the package and you put it in your pot to cook or grill or whatever, full of chemicals, maybe fecal material, full of it. You must wash until your water is clear. Continuously wash your chicken. Anything, any meat, wash it thoroughly. Your vegetables, put them in some vinegar and salt water. Soak them a little while. You know, and this is the type of thing I discussed with our congressmen and senators. And they were in Senator Sessions' office, I believe it is, Jeff Woods and another young man, the young man that's just come on board. He looked at Jeff and he said, I told my wife she better be washing everything. He was so matter of fact, you know, because...
I guess he doesn't cook himself.
But, you know, people read packages. Well, this product comes out of this soup and it's never washed again. It might go through a little sprayer, or if a piece of product fell on the floor, then they pick it up and take it to a wash station where a quality assurance person checks it to make sure it's okay before it goes back into production, but never washed again until you prepare it or the restaurants prepare it.
Could you describe, you mentioned some of the conditions in terms of the companies. I'm talking about the private, you know, the plant workers. What are some of the issues that they're facing in terms of their experience working at poultry facilities?
Well, they're intimidated by their supervisor if they're running a lot of what we call encephalitis, which is cold. It's like a bad cold in you as a human. You have all this mucus inside the bird, and sometimes it's congealed around the rib cavity, dark yellow, and when you pull the visceral out, the lungs is crusted with this stuff called encephalitis. And if it's not really, really bad, it's just a little bit in there, they won't let them pull them off the line like they're supposed to. They're supposed to be pulled off the line, sent to reprocessing for the kidneys to be removed and or maybe cut up, and none of the interior or the cavity of the body be shipped out. They'll say, let it go. Well, who are you going to believe? USDA, which is saying you can't let it go, which they're sitting on the back end of the line, or your supervisor that's paying you. You're going to let it go down that line. And USDA is got their hands tied. They can't look down in that chicken unless they happen to see a little string of yellow stuff hanging out. All that goes out to the public. So they're intimidated by their supervisors to let everything go. And they're having to work at such a high rate of speed, their little arms and wrists are just worn out
What about-
big knots come up on them.
What about the use of the chemicals too? Did you?
There was one chemical which is in cheese, I know for sure, in cheese manufacturing. It was our first one at Guntersville, TSP. I forget how you pronounce all those things. But anyway, it's a citrus type acid. It's real strong. And it would, when we would do testing on the birds, if it got past the glove, it would just burn. Big spots on your skin. And so the company, nurses, bought creams for us to have in our office for that. Finally, we all complained so much till they come and did an air study. And there was so much coming out into the air, they got away from that.
So they
Okay.
stopped
the
testing.
CSP solution. Then they went to I forget the name of the next solution that FDA approved as an antimicrobial. And it turned their chicken gray. And there was a couple of people up in New York somewhere ended up in the hospital due to eating chicken. They were allergic to this solution. So they quit using that solution, and now they're into the vinegar-based solution, antimicrobial solution. It goes into the chiller with so much chlorine. And you can only go 50 parts per million in chlorine. That's regs, no more than 50 parts per million. And then they use this vinegar solution. And with that, well, of course, if they're running bad tests down here, they're going to increase the solutions so that they can pass their test. Okay? FDA has approved these antimicrobials in a certain amount. When you throw it out there to these companies, you're going to get a tremendous amount if it takes it to pass their test, because they're not going to stop running their chicken.
So they've been using larger amounts than
A lot
allowed.
of, yes. Yeah. I think there was a news report where Mr. Charles Painter was on, and he told them in that news report that he himself had did the test for the company, and he himself knew that they had to add more chemicals to get the test to pass. So it's proven fact that they do.
Who is Charles Painter?
He is the Southern Council president of AFGE.
Are they meat inspectors?
Meat inspectors.
Other questions? Yes.
Hi, Phyllis. Teresa Green from also the National Consumer State. And I know that the media tends to focus on the food safety side of this because that's something, as you said, as mothers or grandmothers, people can really relate to that. They understand that they don't want their children to fall ill. And I know that USDA is obviously focused on food safety and has really sort of indicated to us in our work that the worker safety piece is not their problem. And I wonder how people have responded when you bring up these injury rates and the potential sort of increase in frequency on these folks so much.
Well, I think some of my speaking out has brought attention to the safety, because I've been on 2 news stations in Alabama, and then all of a sudden we get 2 big news organizations in Alabama, plus the Alabama Law Division writing a report. Alyssa, can you remember the name of that report? I can't remember right off the name of it. It was what? And they wrote this big article about all that, and I think it stemmed from me speaking out, because I've always brought in the safety issue. First and foremost is the foodborne illness issue, because since the early 1990s, this country has been plagued with so much foodborne illness. And since then, USDA has backed off on regulations. They just keep backing off, giving more and more and more to the industry. We have so many people that can't speak English, that have illegal immigrants working in these plants. We need these laborers, yes. We very much need these people for labor, because we, American people, think they're too good for some of these jobs. It's in my opinion. And they have a language barrier. And it's smile and do what the supervisor says. So a lot's going out that way, too. And they get injured, and they won't report it because they're scared. No, it's a bad thing.
Also, I've heard that there are issues with how they do sick leave at many of the companies. Have you run across that? That you essentially, instead of getting 10 sick days or 15, 12 sick days or whatever, that you actually, that you actually don't get that.
No. Most of your poultry plants, all they're set up for is on a point system, and you get so many points every 6 months, I believe it is. And if you have to use those points for sick days, you use them for sick days. And if you go over the amount that you're allotted to go for those 6 days, you must bring in a doctor's statement. You must bring in a doctor's statement if you're going to be long-term. And, if you're a half an hour late, you lose a half a point. That's 4 hours. If you're sick, you lose 8 hours, and you're only allowed. Jerry, do you remember how many days it is that they get? Since your husband's a supervisor, I can't remember. It's like 8 days every 6 months that this particular company does. Other companies, if you're out sick 1 day, you bring in a doctor's statement, and no matter. You don't have any allotted sick days like government inspectors have so many hours that they accumulate.
Yes. Yes.
Is there a difference in safety issues for chicken versus turkey?
I would not think so. Now, turkey does have a thing in the breast, and I forget the name they call it. It's where the breast has a lot of green inside, like where the tender would be. It's an infection that gets in between the 2 layers, and it turns green. Now, they do have that in turkey that you don't see in chicken. Other issues would be the same, the fecal, and how could you run a turkey at such fast speeds? Any faster than what they are allowed to run now, because there's such large things to hold in their hands to look at. I used to be in a plant that we run hens, and that was ridiculously hard. So turkeys, I never worked in a turkey plant, but I could imagine the severity it would be on your hands, because your hands really hurt, because you have to raise up this leaf flap that has fat on it to look down into the carcass. At the same time, you've got the visceral of that carcass in this hand. The birds are coming to you this way. You grab that leaf fat, flip it back, grab that visceral, and you're looking for disease in it. You look inside the bird, then you tilt back and look at and you have a mirror in front of you to look at the front. So to imagine holding those turkeys all day long like that, and it's the same motions. It would be hard, and for them to be at a greater line speed, I wouldn't want to eat them. I'm sorry, but I wouldn't.
Could you tell people how they can sign your petition?
Yes, go to change.org and go to, I believe it's under Phyllis McKelvey on change.org with USDA. And if you want to Google me, go Phyllis McKelvey USDA, and it pops up. I'm pretty much all over the internet. Y'all just spread me everywhere.
Well, even more so because I believe this program today will be on the internet as well. So many more people than are here today will be able to see you. Also, just as another ad here, is if you join whistleblower.org, or if you go to whistleblower.org and like us, or if you go foodwhistleblower.org and like us, both of those, then the organization gets $1 for everyone that likes us for the next 4 days. So that will actually help us continue the American Whistleblower Tour and bring people like Phyllis across the country to college campuses. Any other questions before we move on? Well, thank you very much. Oh, yes, there is one.
Well, I understand that Purdue is specifically raising organic chicken. They're changing one of their facilities to specifically do organic grown chicken. So I'm sure that plant is going to be a specialty plant, to be extra clean, be like the good old Southern housewife would take care of that product. Because it's going to be on a much slower pace because of it being organic. It takes so much longer to grow an organic chicken than it does the chickens that are gone down the processing lines in 6 weeks. They're from an egg to a big old chicken going down the line, you know. They're fed so much chemicals and fed day and night. The lights are on, you know. They're growing constantly, 24 hours a day. But the organic chicken, it's going to be like my little birds. They're fed, hand-fed. I have chickens at my house. We raise eggs, and I hand-feed them. And that's why you raise an organic chicken is out in the pasture fence, you know. I'm sure they're going to have houses that they'll have fence they can go out into, but it's a much slower. It's going to take them anywhere 3 months or longer to raise a fryer, from egg to skillet. So it's going to be a much slower process and a much safer processing it, I'm sure. Because Purdue, I don't want to put one company over the other, but Purdue is really going to spend a lot of money to get this going, because that is a very long process, and Purdue's plants are one of the cleanest plants that you'll ever walk in. They're like the plant I came out of had a lot of stainless steel in it, a lot of beautiful shiny equipment in stainless steel. Purdue was one of the first to put in all this beautiful equipment to keep things clean, easier to clean. They've always been extremely good about sanitation. So I read the article about them changing one of these plants strictly to organic, and I thought, that's amazing. They're willing to spend that much time and money. And that's a good thing, a very good thing for the people.
Yes.
Quick question. How much does the industry stand to make if this rule goes?
Oh, my. Tremendous. Well, what they will do, if this goes through, everybody's going to jump on board, going to flood the market. Every freezer in the United States and every ship they can get is going to be full. And then it's going to stall. Because they're all going to want to run the fastest they can run. They're going to put out every piece of product they can put out, which they'll get more than what they're getting through inspection, because they'll let it go. And it's just going to flood. So really, they're going to lose money. They'll really lose money in the long run.
Will people die?
Of course people will die. We'll have E. coli and we'll have salmonella going out. I mean, it'll just be a continuous thing, because as fast as they want to run, I'm worried about the chemical thing, the antimicrobial washes, and the fecal material in the chillers. Because as fast as those speeds are, their USDA is also let up. It's always been they have to be 40 degrees or below coming out of these chillers. Now they've let up on a lot of these companies that have cut-up departments, that in these cut-up departments, if they keep the department 55 degrees or below, they do not have to do a thorough wash down during the shift. They can just ice the product and leave it on the bins while the people go to break and come back. And so they've let up on these plants that the product can come out above 40 degrees out of the chillers and go through their cut up and whatever process that they've got selected to do with their product that day. Also, if they ice the combo and it's going out of the kill plant to their sister cut-up plant, processing plant, for their processing, they can also have that higher temperature. And anytime you've got fecal, talking about any small amount of fecal, temperature is going to make it cause Salmonella, E. coli faster, temperature. And that's
The higher the temperature.
The higher the temperature, the more you raise the temperature. That is one thing that back when we had no antimicrobial rinses, everybody paid attention to what was going on. Person down the line saw a bird that the trimmer might have not, and the inspector was looking at their bird, and their trimmer did not do what they should have done. And the next station down the line, somebody else doing cutting livers or gizzards or whatever, saw that bad bird, they would take it off and dump it, because the people were that good at their jobs. And that's why back several years ago, back in the 70s, 80s, you didn't hear all these foodborne illnesses you have today, because people were aware of everything. Everybody watched out everything. And back then, if you had too much moisture in the bird, you had to hold it for 24 hours. If they come out of the chiller too warm, above 40 degrees, they had to be held under ice. Stop the chiller, stop the lines, and then what had gotten through had to be held till it went below 40 before it could ever be loaded on a truck. I was a shipping clerk at one time. I made sure my trailers were clean that I loaded my product on. I'd send the drivers back out. They'd come in with a dirty trailer. You don't bring a dirty trailer to my dock. We go wash the trailer. You go wash the trailer, and then you come back. You pre-cool that trailer at 32 degrees, and you run that trailer for so many hours after you're given instructions to run that unit at that temperature so long before you can raise it back up so that that trailer, that product is as cold as it was when it came out of the unit there in the plant. So all these things were taken into account back then. Now, it's fast, fast, fast. Just go, go, go.
Let me ask just one more question. In terms of the significance of not being able to actually pick up the bird because they're flying by at 1/3 of a second, and you can't pick them up and look inside, what is significant about not looking inside?
Well, they could have ursiculitis, be full of fecal material. They could even have a tumor along the inside cavity wall.
Is that where you're most likely to find
That's
a problem?
the visceral, and inside that bird can tell me everything I need to know about that bird. Another thing about, this hasn't been spoken about. I don't know if you eat chicken gizzards, chicken livers, or not, but
Probably not anymore, but anyway, different subject.
in a hemp plant, in a normal plant, every visceral is checked by the federal inspector. Like I said, you grab it, you look at it. Even if they're on the fast line speed mine maestro, they come in a cup. They're drawn out and put in the cup. They've learned that removing that visceral as fast as they can from the chicken and getting it away from the actual carcass, less feces gets on it. So that's a big help. But the federal inspector can touch that visceral, look at that visceral, as well as the bird it came out of. In hemp, all viscerals are removed before the federal inspector sees the bird. Only time the federal inspector in a hemp plant is going to see these livers and gizzards is if they're doing a task called AQL. Where you go in, you get 10 livers, 10 gizzards, 10 necks, and you look for ingesta, feathers, hair. You look to see.
So random.
Yeah, random 10-bird test, and that is random by how you pick your task for the day, or the computer shoots out your tasks for the day. But these livers and these gizzards are shipped out with a little symbol. USDA inspected and a plant number on it. USDA never looked at them except for every farmer, every change is called a lot change. And at that lot change, you go out and you look at the birds on the truck. You come through the plant, you watch them go through the stunner and be killed, and you come all the way through and make sure they're not breathing as they go into the skull tank. Then you come into the eviscerating department, and before the sorters, look at 50 birds per line for liver leukosis. That's all the federal inspection these viscerals get. And they're shipped out to the public with the assembled USDA inspection.
So this is a wave of the future unless folks sign up on the petition. So any last question? Yes.
How does increasing the speed of the inspection line increase, does it have any impact on the speed of the slaughter line? How does that impact the animal welfare and worker safety?
It impacts all. Because the birds are coming in at a faster rate, they're being dumped out of the cages faster. Could be more bruises, more death before they're humanely killed. A humane kill in a poultry plant, they come into a dark room, they're hung on a line in the dark. And they come out, and they come through electric stunners. And the stunner stuns the chicken's head, and its neck falls down and then goes through a neck splitter, which cuts the arteries to bleed out. And that is the humane way to handle the chicken. And these fast line speeds, they're being dumped, caught in the dumpster all the time because they're coming in faster. We even had them not in a hemp plant, but in a sister plant, a sister town to the plant that I worked in. This is gross.
Grosser?
Grosser than anything you'll ever think about. The second shift went into work. They went to hang chickens, and a man picked up a man's head. They were putting the cages on the ramp so fast that it got caught, and the little man ran to unhang it, and his head got squeezed off between the two. And these cages are like as long as this table and about 3 times as wide, full of chickens. And nobody knew because he was out there by himself trying to set up, getting ready for the next shift.
Well, with that,
Now that's worker safety, isn't it?
yeah.
All right. When you got equipment, dangerous equipment, you have more than one person there. You have automatic stops at any point.
So the continuing legal education is going to start at 10:30? Is that the plan? So at 10:30. So now that we've heard this discussion, there is